When Little Boy and Fat Man, the two atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, were deployed in August 1945, they caused massive explosions and widespread destruction. Somewhere between 120,000 and 250,000 people were killed. Today, bombs have been created that are over 3,000 times stronger than those bombs dropped on Japan in World War II. The weapons of the present are powerful and terrifying, and many new weapons are still being developed. Today, we'll be talking about 5 of the insane weapons of the future set to be completed by 2025. Let's take a look. 1. The Super Great White Shark. The first entry on our list, the Super Great White Shark's name hardly belies its function. Dubbed Super Great White Shark and Super Jaws by the Chinese media, it is, in fact, an almost all-black and decidedly unshark-like Chinese prototype for an attack helicopter. Unveiled at the China Helicopter Expo in Tianjin in October of 2019, the distinctly science fiction-esque design is about 25 feet long and 10 feet high with room for 2 crew members. The rounded outer shell both covers the aircraft's rotors and engines and, with its curved edges, enhances the helicopter's stealth capabilities by making it harder to detect using radar. At present, the flying saucer-like Super Great White Shark is just schematic drawings and a display model without flight capabilities. And, admittedly, many in the Western media are predicting that it may ultimately have a tough time flying, while translations of these schematic drawings suggest that it'll travel up to a little more than 400 miles per hour and be able to reach up to 20,000 feet. Similar designs have previously been abandoned by American and Canadian engineers. In the 1950s, a Canadian company attempted a similar design called the VZ-9 AVROCAR. In the 1960s, after a number of other unsuccessful attempts at creating their own UFO-shaped attack chopper, the American military then attempted to build the AVROCAR aircraft based off those schematics. In their various trials, they found not only that duct-based systems and similar designs which would give the crafts their unusual shape have no particular advantages over standard airplane and helicopter designs, but also that the ships as built were incredibly unstable. Once completed, the VZ-9 AVROCAR was only able to float up to 3 feet off the ground and fly about 35 miles per hour without becoming destabilized, making it slower than a souped-up golf cart. That said, technology has come a long way since the 1950s and 60s, so whether or not China can pull off a fast and capable flying saucer of a helicopter remains to be seen. For the moment, at least, the Super Great White Shark's developers are expecting that it will make its fully functional premiere at the 2020 AIRSHOW China in ZHUHAI. 2. Tungsten rods from space. With flying saucers straight out of the Twilight Zone in development and nuclear bombs getting ever more powerful, it's hard to imagine that one of the deadliest potential weapons on this list would also be the simplest. Yet, the weapon concept of tungsten rods ready for deployment from space, best known these days as Project THOR, is an incredibly simple yet destructive one. While treaties prohibit the placement of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons in space, the US Air Force has explored designs for a powerful weapon that requires none of these. Known as rods from God, these projectiles are, as of today, only hypothetical, but if put into use could prove as powerful in terms of magnitude of explosion as a ground-penetrating nuclear weapon, just without any of the fallout. Essentially, the idea is that you could use a satellite holding thermal-protected inert projectiles like tungsten rods to perform something called kinetic bombardment, basically harnessing the kinetic energy of an object making impact at a high speed to create destructive force akin to a bomb. A directional thrust system would lock onto a target, and then the weapon would be dropped into Earth's orbit. The object would have a large amount of kinetic energy to start with because it would be moving at orbital velocity, would be slowed as it entered the atmosphere but would retain some of that energy, and would then use gravity to regain velocity and energy as it plummeted toward its target. Popular science calculates that a weapon of this ilk could destroy a target in as few as 15 minutes. This technique of bombardment has been used previously on a smaller scale. Small, unguided kinetic projectiles known as lazy dogs were used by the US Air Force in the Korean and Vietnam Wars, based on similar projectiles used in the First and Second World War. These small projectiles functioned almost like bullets falling from the sky, weighing less than an ounce each but causing immense damage when hurled from aircraft. Project THOR theorizes that, done on a much larger scale, this weapon style could be used to devastating effect. Fortunately for all involved, the costs of launching heavy tungsten rods into space would be, at present, astronomical, and targeting and efficient timing could prove too difficult to make the system precise enough for use and certain not radically superior to more earthbound weaponry. In fact, popular science estimated such a weapon wouldn't be feasible for at least 15 years, as of 2004. the idea has resurfaced a number of times in the last several years, scary as it may sound. Even if Project Thor amounts to nothing, hypersonic weapons like these could turn out to be the frightening weapons of the future. 3. The E-bomb. One of the most talked about and invested in weapon types in recent years is the E-bomb, an EMP or electromagnetic pulse weapon. These weapons come in two forms, nuclear and non-nuclear, and are designed to overwhelm anything with an electrical circuit using a massive electromagnetic burst. When young people in the US were being taught to duck and cover during the Cold War, a nuclear EMP attack was the primary concern. This is because, in the 1950s, when the US was testing hydrogen bombs, they discovered that an H-bomb exploded about 30 miles above ground would both create a nuclear explosion and render electrical equipment useless, potentially on a national scale. While this may still be a hypothetical possibility, today, global concerns are more focused on non-nuclear EMP weapons, which would offer low casualties but cripple militaries and communications. In today's modern, tech-reliant world, being able to neutralize everything that requires electricity could bring army bases, cities, and even nations to their knees. And what's even more concerning is that, on a small scale, it could be done relatively inexpensively and simply, making it appealing to terrorist groups and rebel factions. A functional E-bomb can take down vehicle controls, weapons targeting systems, sensors, navigation, and communications for military, and would equally knock out internet and phones, mass transit, and heating and cooling systems for civilian populations, making it a pretty scary futuristic weapons device, and that's the non-nuclear option. And what's more, these aren't even truly a thing of the future. It's widely believed that the US military already has EMP devices in its arsenal, though their exact design is unknown. 4. Lethal autonomous weapons. What if there was a weapon in development that Wikipedia would redirect you to if you were to search killer robots? How would that make you feel? Well, feel that way because the phrase killer robots redirects to this fourth item on our list of upcoming weapon systems, lethal autonomous weapons. Lethal autonomous weapons, or LAWs for short, are various types of autonomous military robots that, according to Wikipedia, can independently search and engage targets based on programmed constraints and descriptions. As minority report as that may sound, they're hardly a thing of the distant future. Globally, militaries from the US and UK to Israel, Russia, and China are known to be working on the development of and even putting into use military and medic robots, unmanned vehicles and naval ships, and even artificially intelligent missiles. Many who work in defense feel that the future of war is one without any human soldiers on the battlefield. The question today is not whether lethal autonomous systems will be developed, but rather how they will be deployed and what rules should govern them. The US already has much of the tech to make autonomous killer robots a reality, but has, as a matter of policy, limited its developments in terms of offensive maneuvers to date in semi-autonomous weapon systems that require human oversight and approval of major actions. Automatic defensive systems, on the other hand, are fairly widespread, and given that they typically work to neutralize missiles rather than human targets, are not quite as controversial. That said, a majority of governments at the United Nations support a ban on lethal autonomous weapons entirely. Many worry that the use of fully autonomous laws would de facto violate international humanitarian law and create gray areas when it comes to who should take responsibility for the actions of these killer robots, or, more likely as of today, killer drones. The ethics of machines are a question we will likely have to grapple with as a global society a lot over the coming century. These futuristic weapons are just one more example of the tough questions raised by giving autonomy to computers. 5. The future vertical lift. Last but not least, the future vertical lift is less one weapon than a plan. FVL, as it's often abbreviated, is the US Armed Forces' plan to develop a new family of helicopter models to replace its existing Blackhawks, Apaches, and other military helicopters. Since the existing American fleet of choppers has seen heavy use, the intention is to replace them as soon as possible with a new fleet with a variety of models fit to specific purposes, from scouting to attack to cargo and tactical transport. While designs are, to public knowledge, still being refined, they are to be faster, lighter, more reliable, and able to carry a heavier payload than existing vertical lift aircraft models. The initiative was started in 2009, and the first models from the Future Vertical Lift project are slated to be introduced in 2025, with rollouts of new models continuing until at least 2060. The first model to be released may be the JMR-ULTRA, the largest of the planned models intended for tactical transport-style missions. At present, the first efforts on the project are being led as a joint collaboration between Boeing and Sikorsky, which is owned by Lockheed Martin. The most recent news seems to be that Lockheed Martin has, on their website, a prototype of a compound coaxial helicopter called Raider X that has flown successful test flights in Florida and is a candidate for the FVL project. We'll have to watch for new developments in this space, but when these updated military helicopters are finalized and released, they'll mark the first major advancements in vertical lift air transport in decades. And there you have it. These are 5 of the many powerful weapons in development today. While there are several of these that we hope never to see used, they may be ready for deployment as soon as 2025. Some of them are already just about ready for use. What do you think? Which of these weapons and military vehicles do you find most worrisome? Do you know of any other major weapons projects in development worth examining? Sound off in the comments to let us know. While you're here, take a minute to give us a thumbs up below this video to let us know you're enjoying our content, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell button to be notified when we release new videos. That way, you won't miss any more interesting facts like these.